life in Mexico can be simple. It can be complicated if you make it that way. But let's talk about living the simple life here in La Ventana. And also, we've got a love story tied into the middle of this one. But let's meet some folks here in La Ventana.
I'm Brigid Greenwood.
I'm Greg Greenwood, otherwise known as Woody or Baja Woody.
So we are on their porch here overlooking the Gulf of California. It is amazing. And we're going to talk all about their life here in Mexico and their home and all that kind of good stuff. But let's start back about maybe 3.5 years ago and hear where their story starts together.
So the first time I came to La Ventana was about 3.5 years ago when you invited me to come down here. Woody and I were high school sweethearts, and we hadn't seen each other in 40 years. And we were reunited during the pandemic, like a lot of people. And he was coming down to this little sleepy fishing village called La Ventana that I had to look up. I had to Google it to find out where it was. I love Mexico. I'd traveled in Mexico before, but I'd never been to the Baja Peninsula. So we were falling in love, and it seemed like a great place to spend the time together and get to know each other. And we ended up here. That would have been the spring of 2021. And it was really a magical time and just a beautiful place. It was very quiet then because there weren't as many people down here. It was still kind of pandemic time, and so we really got to connect with the environment and the beauty of the place. And we knew before we left that we were coming back. In fact, we had already put a lease on the house that we're staying in now 3 years later.
So Brigid mentioned that she had been in Mexico before, but I want to go back a little bit and ask Woody how it was bringing Brigid to this little bit sleepy, definitely dusty town down here on the Baja Peninsula, because it's very different from even the mainland of Mexico.
So when I invited Brigid to come to Mexico, I had to be a little bit coy because not everyone cares for a windy, dusty location on the Sea of Cortez or the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of California. And we figured it out, and she said yes, and here she came. So when she arrived at the San Jose del Cabo airport, I picked her up, and I conveniently planned a couple of nights there on the beach for call it a transition, if you will, because there's a lot of resources there. It's a wonderful culture, but it's much more touristy. And so we enjoyed the time there and had some good meals and sat by the pool and walked to the beach, and then made our way north a couple hours to La Ventana, where it's considerably more raw. And so we drove and had a great drive up the seacoast and through the mountains, then dropped down into the bay here, and it's all gorgeous. And then the asphalt turns to dirt. And so there was quite the surprise that everything else was dirt road except the single road end that's paved, which I think is very special if you can get used to it. And Brigid seemed to adapt to it quite easily. And we really had a lot of fun reuniting our friendship and eventual love after being apart for 40 years in Mexico. And so we've made this our life now in the winters and have fallen in love with the culture, the Mexican national, locals, and a lot of gringos that come down from the north and from the east as well, from Europe. So it's been a great place for us to start our new relationship and marriage. And our son, Jack, loves it as well. So we've had him down a couple of times also during the holidays.
Yeah. So, the timing was amazing because Jack, my son, had just gone away to college. So I was an empty nester. I was already working remotely even before the pandemic. I'm a freelance writer. And I just packed up my little laptop and took off. And of course, at that point, everybody was working remotely. So there was a lot more freedom in that as well. I do remember that first season, we had a few glitches with the Wi-Fi that wasn't the best, but that's really improved. I continue to work remotely today, and the infrastructure has just improved over the years. So that's really helpful, which is, also encouraged us to spend more time down here. Now we're building a house.
and living in this house has been fantastic. Being newly in love, there's a lot of energy down in town, and we like town. There's great resources, restaurants, and there's one gas station, so you can fill up your rig to get around town as well. We knew after the first season at a resort living arrangement at Pelican Reef, which we love and have great friends there still today, that we wanted to be a little more remote. So we're pretty far. We're a mile off the beach, and we're up the hill. We've got an incredible view, as you could probably tell in the reflection. And this house is owned by a Mexican family, Orlando and Rosa, and their 2 kids. They have access to fresh water because they own a water truck company. And they come and they've planted all these palm trees over the years, and they are beautiful, front drop, if you will, to the water. And it's 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, quite simple. It's hand wash the dishes. We're putting our clothes in the clothesline. It's just kind of back to the basics for us, which we really appreciate. That kind of minimalistic, no Amazon delivery. There's no Starbucks drive-through, no convenience food. We go to town on occasion to get produce and protein, mostly fish, because it comes out of the sea that day. And literally Martine's down there cutting his fish, and we're asking for a few slices for the night, or some fresh shrimp or some fresh scallops. And then we pick up some produce on the way. And Brigid's an amazing cook, by the way, and using the fresh local ingredients here just tastes even better for us, I think, than what all the expensive stuff at Whole Foods in the U.S. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because we're at sea level, and maybe because it's such a close connection between growth, harvest, and consumption. Brigid can probably share a little bit more about that, because you really, every night is another great cultural culinary experience for me.
Well, it's really kind of a throwback to a simpler time, or when you do things more by hand. There's every modern convenience that you could want here, or pretty much. And the environment just sort of invites you to be a part of, to participate in what's local here. I don't think the produce here is transported, thousands of miles. It's maybe, it comes from farms that are just right in the area, maybe a few miles away. In fact, we visited one the other night. But it does really make it. It's inspiring. It's inspiring to cook here, because what looks fresh, what looks good, and I'm a much better cook in La Ventana than I am anywhere else.
Additionally, this location up to the north and in the hills a bit is just a short walk or mountain bike ride to what they call the North Trails. Mm-hmm. There's an association here called La Vesta, which is a nonprofit that does all the trail maintenance, creation, and maintenance for 2 trail systems, one in the south in the Cardone Forest, one in the north, which is more of the mountains. And so we can literally ride our bikes from the house to the trails here, or if we want a longer ride, we can go down to town and go through town and to the Cardone Forest and back. And everything's within reach. But there's, of course, tons of wind sports out on the water every day the wind blows. We've got unbelievable amounts of colors out there and devices that people are using to enjoy the sea. And not to forget the hiking trails, the snorkeling, the mountain biking. There's so many other activities within reach that keep us active every day. And Brigid, there's a gym in town. There's one gym in town. And Brigid goes down there 3 times a week to get her work on. And it's just every resource you can imagine, from kind of womb to tomb, if you will, is available to us.
Yeah. It is. I think that's something that, we're very conscious about with respect to where we would want to retire, because we do eventually want to retire down here. And I use that term lightly, because this is a very active community, and active in that all the various sports, and people are very health conscious. We sometimes joke that we go to a fundraiser for one of the organizations here that are helping the community. Like we're going to one for to fund the ambulance service tonight, and we sometimes joke like, we're kind of some of the youngest people here, but that's amazing. There are people in their well into their 70s, their 80s, who are still super active on the water, mountain biking, amazing trails, hiking, very involved in the community. It just inspires you to stay moving, and it's nice that still be working and be able to enjoy that lifestyle. A lot of our friends come down for vacation and have a great time. We look at this as our home. And so it is we do have to balance, all those fun things with working. And for me, it's meeting deadlines. That is a little bit different. It's sometimes a challenge. We have friends who come down and they're here to party, and I've got a deadline that day. So I'm on a little bit different track. It's kind of the best of all possible worlds.
I remember last year, we were looking at homes instead of looking at land, and we were down one row off the beach and meeting with this elderly couple, and they were selling their house. They've been living here for 30-something years. And we said, well, why are you selling? And they're like, well, we're 89 and 88. We figured it's probably about time to go back and get closer to healthcare in the U.S. And it's hilarious. It's Bruce Sheldon's parents. Bruce has been in this community for a long time, and then his parents came as well. But that's to your point, Brigid, like how active people are and how long they live in this healthy, active environment. And I think the other point that you mentioned, too, that's really important in this community is the volunteerism, the giving back, the serving back attitude. It's not an extractive place whatsoever. People don't come and grab and go. Now, some of the tourists might, they come for short visits to just get some good kiteboarding in or wing foiling in or mountain biking or go up to Cacachillas, which is Christy Walton's ranch that she's done a tremendous job in preservation here of the entire mountain range from the highway to the Punta Gorda area. There's so much to serve back and do here. And the notion that Christy would put the kind of resources and employment together to do that in this community is a great leadership role for all of us to help with the trail building, with the children in the schools. Brigid was out with the children, was it Monday of this week?
Last Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already losing the days of the week.
Yeah.
And she went hiking with some of the kids from the school and just teaching them about the flora and the different elements of outdoors and how to be appropriate on trails and so on. And then we have a bike program for the youth as well to get them active early. And there's so many good things in the ambulance program you talked about. There's others I can't think of at this moment.
Oh, the recycling is a huge thing.
Oh, right.
Recycling
No mas basura.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to share about that?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I think it's just, that's an interesting aspect of small town life is that you can come and dig in and really make a difference because you don't have all the bureaucracy. You don't have all the systems set up. So if you see a challenge that you can help and have a solution around, you can just step in and find other people to help you do it. I believe that's how the recycling program started. And now every Thursday they have a setup at the farmer's market where you can bring all your glass, and I think they take everything but cardboard pretty much, and then get that to the appropriate recycling center. So those practices aren't set up yet in a community like this. And but people care and they're able to do it and sustain it. So it's pretty cool. And there's a lot that can be done while being respectful to the culture and not trying to overdo or come in and say, well, we know the best way to do things, but to work with the existing community and kind of fill in some of the gaps and make up for the big footprint that we're placing here. We definitely want to as what he said, conservation is a huge concern here, particularly the water. And so like when we're building our house, we are using best practices for conservation so that we make as little imprint as possible and hopefully even improve the land that we've purchased.
When we were looking for our own piece of property or home, we were considering homes that were already built, hence the meeting of the elderly couple, and looking for raw land. And as we looked at raw land with title, which is just below this house, everything in front of it's already been titled, and the home we're in now is untitled, and up is all untitled. And so everything in the front of this property was very expensive. So fairly small lot was $200,000 to $300,000, and on up, all the way down to the beach of well over $1 million. That's well out of our price range. And so we started thinking about, we both grew up in Arkansas. We both grew up in the woods a bit, Bridget on a farm, and I was on the lake in the woods. And just we're comfortable living off grid and away from resources, not a long way. And so we started looking a little beyond our initial comfort level and met a young, aspiring real estate guy that knew a lot of the local families when the Hito broke up the land to show us land that was available and for sale. And so as we expanded our search, we started to expand the amount of space we'd like to purchase. And we got comfortable buying untitled land versus titled land, because I've been a permanent resident of Mexico for 15 years now, of Baja in particular, and have been through the process a couple of times. And so we have a great attorney in town that was willing to support us with all the proper documentation to make sure that we're shored up on the documentation side and the paperwork side. So as we started to look at the land, that really helped us see that we could have more land because it would cost less the further up the hill we go. There is no bad view in La Ventana and El Sargento. That's the good news. And if we knew we couldn't live on the beach, we were going to have to drive to the beach anyway. So what would it matter if we drove another kilometer or two to the beach? And so as we started searching for land, we look at 5,000 square meters. And then we started looking at hectares, which is 10,000 square meters. And then we fell in love with a piece of property that's 30,000 square meters or 3 hectares. And we kept looking at other land, weren't really ready to pull the trigger. The price seemed right, but we weren't sure. We spent the entire season, this is last year, looking at all kinds of properties, and eventually said, like 2 weeks before we were leaving, I think we were meant to buy this property. And so we closed on it 2 days before we left last year. Now, this land in particular is really unique because the Mexican culture is to have a pretty level lot with a narrow slope, slight slope with a good view. They have to do very little earthwork. And the land that we bought has significant undulations. It's a triangle shape, so it's not a typical square lot. And it has an arroyo below it. So it's got a natural common area protection below it. And then, so it's got some undulations, so it's got some protection around it as well. And so we found a spot on the land. It's a knoll that has an incredible view to build. Now, one of the neat things that we were able to find through our good friend Fernando, who runs the Adventure Hub, is a builder who does sustainable building. And he's getting his PhD in Spain right now, in fact. So we wanted to be ecologically appropriate in our decisions, be really water conservative, and not scrape the land like a lot of folks do when they buy a flat lot. So what Felipe is practiced in is taking the flora that he has to remove for the home site itself and replanting it and putting it where it'll naturally get water and regrow. And so that's been our practice. Additionally, we're making natural gardens in the patios and the courtyard and in the breezeway where we have these big cardones and these other palo blancos and other trees that are really fascinating to us to be really the house is integrated into the undulation where the main house is on the kind of the knoll and then the casitas down below a little bit as the land goes, and the master is down below as well, steps down a few notches, and then Brigid's studio is a little bit further. She's a writer. She needs her quiet space. And additionally, the method of construction is less water. It's large walls. It's hay bale style construction, so they don't need as much water. There's very little cinder block, except in a couple of areas that are necessary. And then, what am I forgetting, honey?
Well, we'll be on solar because we're going to be totally off grid. Water will be brought in, which is a common practice here, and as well as propane.
And on-demand water.
Hot water heater. Yeah.
And we've actually done the study and found that dishwashers are more efficient than hand washing. And we're hand washing here, which is fine. I'm the dishwasher. I don't mind. But it irks me to use so much water to clean dishes. And the efficiency of a dishwasher, you can load it and load it and load it and load it. And the way it runs, it's so efficient. So we'll be doing it that way. Additionally, we put 2 biodigesters in, one for the casita, one for the main house, down below the property. And that's a natural method by which the water waste goes in, gets cleaned, and then goes out into the environment.
Yeah, sort of like a septic tank, but a little bit better.
Yeah, the water that comes out is actually clean enough to use to water other things, which we're not going to do. We are not going to be watering any plants. It's all going to be native.
Yeah.
And so we're not clearing the land. We might do some natural trails on the property. We're not building a big rooftop. We're using the colors of the earth as well. We're not doing any wading pools whatsoever. We're actually not even putting in mini split cooling units for the summers, because Felipe's practiced in how to create cross ventilation in the house with these thick walls. As he says, you come back from the beach in the summer and you walk in your house and you feel like the air conditioner's on because you're using the environment to your advantage.
Yeah. Well, and as in a lot of these beautiful communities, as more people become attracted to the area, there's been tremendous growth in the past 3.5 years since I've been coming down here, and so much more since the first time you were here, right? So, we're very mindful about how our impact is, and buying this large piece of land, we have one house on this land. We don't intend to develop the rest of it. We want to, in fact, go in and wherever we can, build these natural means for water sustaining, to help the land improve and to draw more water into the natural aquifers. There's just so many beautiful creatures that live in this area of the world, and we want to encourage them to have a haven on our property.
In fact, we've named our property Rancho de Mariposa y Zorro, which is butterflies and foxes. Brigid is fascinated by foxes, and we have a fox that lives in our yard here, and we've seen foxes up there. And butterflies, for me, are I've always been away from my father to visit me. He's passed, and so we just want to keep in mind that we're here to be an additive, not an extractive element to the environment.
Yeah.
I guess Kat and I could be Casa Colibri because we say that her mom visits us in the form of a hummingbird, colibri and tortugas. I'm a big fan of turtles. But let's go back to these guys and talk about dollars and pesos and what it costs for not only the new house, but also this one here that they're renting now.
So this house has 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and we're paying $2,200 a month in rent, and that's for the season. So we make a 5-month commitment, and that includes the trash, the water, all the utilities in the premise. Additionally, there's a nice carport, and that allows us to store our toys, if you will, as well as our 2 vehicles. One vehicle is for transportation, and one's for getting around town.
Yeah. So we found that we love the layout of this house. And in fact, we use this house as our model home, so to speak, for the construction, our new construction. There's a great room that's wonderful for entertaining, which we do quite a bit. The kitchen is very open. In fact, so open, there are no cabinet doors. We put our food in these big storage containers, and we always can see what we have. So that's great. And the kitchen has a big island, which again is great for entertaining. I do a lot of cooking, as we said, so that works out really well. There's lots of counter space. There's a adjoining living room, dining room, and then sort of what I use as an office. It's a built-in desk. A lot of the fixtures are formed from concrete, which is amazing. There's such incredible craftsmanship here. Like the desk is built in. All the cabinets are formed with concrete and wood and that sort of thing. That's local sourced, which is awesome. And we'll use those same practices in our house. The 2 bedrooms, there's a bedroom on either side of the main living area, so that affords a lot of privacy for both our guests and ourselves. And the master is an ensuite bath, which is nice. And then the guest suite, the bathroom is separate. It does allow for privacy as well, but then that bathroom's accessible when we have people over for dinner parties or so forth. So it's really a great space, and of course views are maximized here. So you have an opportunity to see the beautiful water. One thing that we're going to do a little bit different in the house we're building is also have a view of the mountains, because the mountain range here is really spectacular and is pretty much untouched. I mean, there's development going on, but it's a really beautiful aspect
kind of transition into how we're doing things differently in the pricing. When we went searching for our land, like I said, the lots down here were way more expensive. So we bought 7.36 acres for $150,000 plus the legal fees. So all in was probably a little over $160,000. There is a bit of a fee base there because we're doing the protective measures on the paperwork. Then the home construction, it has really escalated because of the inflation that's gone on post-pandemic. And that did not miss La Ventana either. Supplies in particular, therefore labor needs to go up as well so people can afford things. And we don't have an endless budget, so we wanted to keep things within a certain framework, and it was a rolling effort with our builder to get inside the window of what's comfortable for us. So 150 for the 160-ish for the land, and then our construction cost is $373,000 US dollars. Of course, the value of the peso is going up, so it's costing more US dollars to build now, as the time you would have it. And then that does not include the road work that we had to do, the front gate, the biodigesters, the water pila, or the solar system that we'll have. So all in on new home construction, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's about 2,200 square feet under roof, which includes a garage. We'll be at $650,000 or less, we hope. That's the number that we're pegging at this point.
Yeah. So it's not inexpensive. I mean, I think I have the impression of like, living in Mexico is going to be so affordable. And in some ways it is more affordable than the States, but in other ways it's prices are comparable. Some things are more expensive if you have to have them brought in. So that's another reason to really think through our decisions on how we're building and the materials we're using, and trying to source things locally as much as possible. And really, we really rely on our architect, who is also the builder, to advise us on, this would make more sense in this scenario using this material versus that material, which is something that it might be a different process in the States, but ultimately we're going to have this amazing view. So that's I guess as they say, that's priceless. So, yeah.
A little bit of our choice to be living in the mountains more than in the city. We had comparably a friend of ours, Justin, built during the pandemic and was able to get his house built considerably less before the inflation kicked in, and when there was not a lot of work going on during that period. And he just sold that house for $750,000, and it's a few rows off the beach in a kind of peculiar spot. But you suffer some tranquility down in town versus what we're wanting to have ourselves. And we're really building a retirement home. We don't want to be amongst the hustle and bustle in town where there's a lot of younger folks that are coming and going down there. We don't mind going to visit, but we want to come home and be in this quiet environment where we really have each other or our guests, or doing a walkabout or a bikeabout in our own environment. So it's really a choice. So we are paying a little more to have a bit nicer home, but we're just being ecologically appropriate and financially appropriate too. I don't think we have any extravagant elements to our home at all, except maybe your studio and my garage.
Yeah.
Did I tell you it's my garage?
That's the trade-off. Okay, I get the studio, you get the garage. That's fine. That's good. That works.
Right.
And of course, I do get to claim that I get the office in the house and Kat gets the rest of the house. That's pretty much it for us. But let's talk about just day-to-day life here as we're starting to wrap up the video.
So our days are quite simple most of the time, unless something intrudes us from the U.S. that gets a little bit of heat around it. The mornings are easy. We are not super early to rise, but we love when the light comes in from the sunrises. The sunrises are spectacular.
Yeah.
The light is a bright orange glow. Our bedroom here does not have a direct sunrise hit, so we get the reflections in the side window and through our door. In our new home, it'll be directly into our bedroom. And we sit and talk and visit in bed, and then I get up, and sometimes Brigid gets up to make coffee and to feed the cat, Botus, who we adopted from down here this winter, who we love and adore. He's been a real joy to our Mexican culture and lifestyle. And then after coffee, once the coffee's made, what do we do?
Well, I mean, often we just have some quiet time to either we might listen to a meditation together or just sit and enjoy the beautiful view and kind of, talk about what our day is going to be like. I mean, we are both still working. So, and we have meetings and we have, deadlines and, different challenges that come up with respect to work. So, we kind of talk through what's coming up and then also what the wind conditions are going to be in the given day, because that's important for water sports. And we just, and then, have a nice breakfast, fresh fruit or
zucchini bread. Brigid makes amazing zucchini bread.
Well, it's all from the whatever's fresh and local, right? So
we get a produce box delivered when we want. We can have this farm we visited recently. They have a delivery program where you can order a box of food, and a friend of ours is running that. So we ordered up, and we got lots of zucchini last week. So Brigid made zucchini bread, and that was delicious the last few mornings.
Yeah.
And then after our time together and a bit of food, we'll drop into a video call, or you'll run to the gym, or I'll go to Spanish classes, because learning Spanish has been really fun and frustrating. There seems to be so many more words in a sentence that it takes to speak it than it does English. But of course, that's our native language. And Brigid, you took Spanish classes last year.
So that really is a goal, is to become fluent in Spanish. And most of the native people here are very well versed in English. And so and they're very kind when I stumble through my limited Spanish, but I really want to, master that or at least get a little more conversant. It's such a beautiful language too. And
then like you say, we got our work to do. We'll have our video calls, or Brigid will drop in and do her writing projects and finish her deadlines as required. And I'll have my meetings and follow up with our team members with Wish for Wheels. And then sometimes you'll go for a bike ride and I'll go kiting or winging. Don't kite anymore. Yeah. That's a has been. And then Brigid will come down to the beach and we'll hang out with some friends for a little bit. And then on our way back, we'll decide what we need to pick up for dinner that night. Do we need anything or do we not? And sometimes we'll get some fresh fish, get some produce, we'll get a jug of water, or whatever the staple is that we need. It's fresh. We come home and Brigid and I go to work. You mostly go to work and I chop a few vegetables.
Yeah. You've got the dish cleaning end of the equation.
Yes, I do. I don't mind at all.
Yeah, but it does take a little more thought and intention as far as like provisioning, as we call it. We can't just run out to Target and buy anything and everything we want. I mean, we really have to think about. Think a little bit ahead of what the things that we need, particularly, just household things like cleaner, or toilet paper, those kind of things. We don't have closets in this house. There are no closets. And it's really kind of cool because it limits what we bring down here and what we have down here.
And we've even found that what we bring, we don't even use all of that. So we keep paring back what we need to bring from the U.S. each season.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like, I could wear this T-shirt a lot. So, and I do. But it does, make you appreciate what you have, certainly. And also, consider, like, if I need a, tomato, I'm going to need to think about that when I'm out and about. And so I don't have to make another trip down to the market, which is not that far, but it's still, it's just made me more mindful, I think, of all of our resources. We don't leave the water running when you're washing dishes. You don't leave the water running.
Showers are very quick.
When I'm baking or I'm cooking, I think about, okay, what else do I need to put in the oven what else can I do at the same time? So that I conserve the propane, because it's a tank. It's a finite amount of propane that we have. And it has gone out before in the middle of cooking dinner.
On Saturday night, so you can't get propane on Sunday.
Yeah. So it does take but I think I think it's a really positive thing as opposed to the kind of on-demand life that we have in the States, where if I forgot something, I can just literally hit the app and have it delivered to my house in an hour, which is wonderful in some ways. But yeah, I don't know. I appreciate, having to put the effort in.
Now, I really appreciate not having consumerism knocking at my door all day, every day. And that Amazon does deliver down in town. It takes a while. We've never used it, but it's just not that attractive when you're living in the mountains in a simple place where so many other things seem more important and attractive than being on a computer looking for something to buy to add the space that you don't have anyway. It's pretty interesting. Now, we do have a few luxuries that when we have guests coming down, well, hey, could you bring a bag of this, or you could bring some? Brigid makes amazing Greek food, so falafel mix. We have a particular brand we love, and they don't sell falafel mix in Baja. And so our friends brought us 3 boxes of falafel mix down the last time they came. So yeah, we've made the adjustment. Yeah. It's really been fun for us to really bring in the minimalism and to really focus on each other in a conversation. Yeah, Brigid's gotten so minimalist, she doesn't let me listen to the music sometimes in the morning. She just wants to talk. Well, can't we talk over the music? I'm a music buff, and Brigid really appreciates tranquility and stillness.
Well, and it's not, but like there's beautiful birds and the breeze, and there's a lot to appreciate. So
I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Well, how much more perfect of an ending can you get than that? There are more videos for you to watch up here of other expats that have done it already so that you can get that inspiration and you can do it too. I will see you in another video. Hasta luego.